Hello and welcome to the Angling Flaneurs. It's a Wednesday afternoon in the City of London and I'm wandering around Lothbury. We're going to be doing a walk along Moorgate today, but I thought I'd do some filming around here before. We're at the back of the Bank of England. I filmed here before at 7 Lothbury when I did a little feature on the Gothic masterpiece, and I'm just going to film Founders Court for a few moments and then we'll make our way on to Moorgate. Founders Hall is the livery hall of the Worshipful Company of Founders, one of the livery companies of the City of London. Founders were workers in brass and brass alloys or tinplate known as latten or lantern, producing small cast articles such as candlesticks and pots and pans, and their workshops were situated in and around Lothbury. And the great London historian John Stowe, who we often quoted that this street is possessed for the most part by founders that cast candlesticks, chafing dishes, spice mortars and such like copper or latten works, and do afterwards turn them with their foot and not with the wheel. We've now made our way to the junction with Lothbury, Gresham Street, Princess Street and Moorgate, and we'll soon be heading north. After we've shown you some fine footage of the wonderful building that makes up the Bank of England. The name Moorgate took its name from two sources. Firstly, Moorfields, a marshy area that lay north of the London Wall, the Roman Wall, and secondly, because it was one of the gates to the Roman Wall. And again, it's another one of those wonderful thoroughfares that span out from Bank, which you could say is the centre of the City of London. The area, known for its marshy conditions against the London Wall, impeded the flow of the River Walbrook and its tributaries, basically acting like a dam. An early name for Moorfields appears to have been Moormead. The Moor place name usually refers to a fen environment, and the wet nature of the area persisted, though this was improved by a drainage scheme in 1572. The drainage in the area was also improved in the 15th century when the monasteries of Charterhouse and St Bartholomew's diverted the headwaters of the Walbrook to their sites in the River Fleet catchment. It has been suggested that this caused a significant reduction in the flow of the river, causing Moorfields to become dry and allowing the mayor to construct the new Moorgate. I've dropped in a print of a map from 1676 that includes the recited Bethlehem Hospital, the City Wall and Moorgate. After the Great Fire of London in 1666, refugees from the fire evacuated to Moorfields and set up temporary camps there, though King Charles II encouraged the dispossessed to move on and leave London. But it is unknown how many newly impoverished and displaced people instead settled in the Moorfields area. We're now walking past the pub, the Token House. Now this is named after a nearby building from the 17th century which distributed legal tender in exchange for tokens once the individual had amassed enough. At this time, legal tender was in short supply and was expensive to produce. And there are many examples of trading tokens being used in 16th and 17th century London. If I was a mudlarker, a trading token would be one of my bucket list finds. The Museum of London, now presently closed, has a wonderful collection of these trading tokens. I've been there a few times to see them and it's really well worth a visit. We've now made our way onto Telegraph Street. There's a wonderful Fuller's pub here. This was the site of the GPO Central Telegraph Office, which opened in 1840. The company managing to persuade the City Corporation to rename the alley Telegraph Street. I have been to this pub before, but probably not for about 20 years. Coming back here brings back warm memories. I particularly like the signage as well. The building is built on the site of Admiralty Telegraph, a shutter station used between 1796 and 1848 to communicate information and news between London and Portsmouth during the Napoleonic War, and was a division of the GPO. We'll now make our way further down Telegraph Street, passing Whalebone Court to the left, and there's a wonderful little alleyway that will be coming up soon on the right. Now we're coming up to this wonderful alleyway. I don't know what it's called. I did look on the map, but I can't find reference to it. So yeah, it's just a wonderful little alleyway with no name, apparently. But if I'm wrong on that point, and that's very, very possible indeed, then please let me know in the comments. But for the moment, let's enjoy it. And even though some years ago I did go to the Telegraph pub, I never really walked beyond it. So this is a little pocket of the City of London that is completely unknown to me. So even after more than 40 years of working in the city, you still come across little parts, little sections of the city that you've never discovered before. And that is part of the joy of these walks, at least for me. And I featured a particularly nice sign for number 1 Telegraph Street. We've now doubled back on ourselves, and we're now looking at Whalebone Court. Called because whalebone was boiled there in preparation for it being made into corsets. And from our very brief visit to Whalebone Court, we've made our way on to Great Swan Alley. It's a very old London byway and is shown as an unnamed tract on the map, or a map of 1270, and during the Tudor period it was known as Swan Alley and connected Coleman Street to the garden of the Worshipful Company of Drapers. The alley gets its name from the Swan's Nest Tavern, which stood close to the gardens. There was a pub on the site from Tudor times until 1969, when the modern day building was demolished. What we see before us is Moorgate Place. Now the layout of the streets and alleys in this particular area is attributed to early developments in the Saxon and Norman periods, and it seems to have escaped a lot of modern developments of the sort of last 50 to 100 years. Much of Moorgate Place was laid out in the 17th century by the Clothworkers Livery Company, placing a cluster of smaller buildings that also backed on to a larger garden. But the real masterpiece here is the building we're about to see, the London Society of Chartered Accountants, which in my mind is one of the finest buildings in the City of London. It was described by the great architectural critic Nicholas Pevsner as eminently original and delightfully picturesque. The building established the fame of its architect John Belcher. Now this building was built in a monumental Baroque revival style. Now I don't really know what that means, but carrying on, it drew upon Baroque architecture which he'd studied while travelling throughout Europe. Now, architecture has always had a fascination with me, though I don't really understand it. It was something that many years ago I did contemplate studying before I got lost to the dark arts of actuarial maths, which I've never really recovered from. And if you find these videos and my voice incredibly dull and boring, then you know that's the reason why. That's my excuse anyway. And now we'll pass some other fine buildings and we'll go out through another wonderful alleyway back onto the busy thoroughfare of Moorgate. But for a few moments, let's enjoy this extremely tranquil place, the wonderful brickwork, the wonderful buildings. And now for a moment we'll employ our usual technique when looking at tall buildings, panning up and down and back down again. I wonder if anybody out there likes this technique. I don't get many comments anyway. No one's ever commented on it. I like it anyway. I've dropped in a picture of a building that I failed to photograph film on the day, so apologies there. It's the Habib Zurich building and it's got a wonderful lighthouse as one of its features. The history of the building will tell us why. It was built in 1928 and designed by Sir Aston Webb and Son. This was the former headquarters of Ocean Accident and Guarantee Corporation. We've now made our way to this Coleman Street building's passageway, and it's thanks once again to Ian Visits for the information on this passageway. Coleman Street is thought to have been the headquarters of the charcoal burners, or Coleman, at about the time of the Norman conquest. The building that the alley now penetrates was built in the late 1980s to replace two existing, modestly average buildings, one which sat on top of the alley. However, that building, 49 Moorgate, has some degree of notoriety. It was for a while the headquarters of the All-Russian Cooperative Society, which was set up to promote trade between the UK and the newly formed Soviet Union. However, the building was raided by police in May 1927, following claims by MI5 had been engaged in spying activity. In the basement, a secret cipher room was discovered where workers were hurriedly engaged in burning papers containing information about British military secrets. The raid and subsequent diplomatic rows became known as the Arcos Affair, and some of the government documents on the matter were still classified right up to 2002. We've now made our way back onto Moorgate and soon we'll be coming to that busy junction with London Wall. And before us we can see the famous Globe pub. We've been here before with a walk along London Wall, so I won't repeat the history of the famous pub there, but it's got connections with John Keats. And before us we can see the new development at 101 Moorgate, offering 70,000 feet of wellness office space, whatever that means. We're now passing the sign for Finsbury Circus. We won't venture there today. That will be for another vlog that has an interesting history, but for another time. We've come to Moorgate Station now, The station was opened in 1865 by the Metropolitan Railway. In 1900, the City and South London Railway added the station to its network, and the Great Northern and City Railway began serving the station in 1904. I'm not going to add too much to its history. It's available on Wikipedia and various railway websites, but I want to talk about the disastrous Moorgate tube crash that happened on the 28th of February 1975. The crash occurred at 8:46 a.m. on the London Underground's Northern City line, with 43 people dying and 74 injured after a train failed to stop at the line's southern terminus. It is considered to be the worst peacetime accident on the London Underground. And this vlog comes out just a week after we did a vlog on the Bethnal Green tube disaster, where 173 people died on the 3rd of March 1943. There was much mystery surrounding this accident. No fault was found with the train, and the inquiry by the Department of the Environment concluded that the accident was caused by the actions of Leslie Newson, the 56-year-old train driver. It was mooted that this might have been a suicide, but accounts from fellow workers were that he was in good spirits. But not that that can guarantee anything, of course. We're now making our way further up Moorgate, and we'll soon be meeting Finsbury Pavement. But let's spend a little more time talking about the history of Moorfields. In the 18th century, Moorfields was the site of sporadic open-air market shows and vendor auctions. Moorfields had a reputation for harbouring highwaymen as well as brothels. James Dalton and Jack Sheppard both retreated to Moorfields when hiding from the law, and parts of the area were known as public cruising areas for gay men. And in 1780, Moorfields saw some of the most violent scenes in the Gordon Riots. We've now made our way to Finsbury Pavement. The name was formerly Moorfields Pavement, being on the west side of Moorfields behind the Bethlehem Hospital. And now we can see the monument to those 43 people who lost their lives in the Moorgate station tube crash on the 28th of February 1975. We're now coming to the end of this vlog. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll take one last look down Finsbury Pavement and Moorgate, and we'll just spend the remainder of the walk just walking around Finsbury Square. It's a particular area for me. I used to work at Triton Court, just opposite the square, and we featured it in a vlog last year on Bunhill Fields burial ground. So it's goodbye from Leanne and Flaneurs. We hope to see you again soon.